let's touch on something that, I've always been quite passionate about, which is VC funding. I've always, in our previous podcast, we covered it a bit, where I feel like, and I don't know if it's changed in South Africa since I was last involved on the scene, but, VCs in South Africa, they give you R1 million, they take 25%. VCs in America, they'll take, 2%, they give you $1 million. Obviously it's totally different. One, Silicon Valley, different budgets, blah, blah, blah. But I don't like our VC ecosystem in South Africa. I feel like it doesn't put the entrepreneur first, and it doesn't value the entrepreneur as the founder and the engine and the driver. And I don't think that our VCs, and maybe this has changed, I don't think that our VCs really get that the entrepreneur is the driving force behind the concept, that you can't, you can remove the entrepreneur, but it doesn't necessarily succeed. What are your thoughts on that?
So I've obviously been on both sides of the fence, because on one side, I'm a finance professional. I understand the financial models. I understand the returns that they need to make and how hard that is. And now on the other side, of course, I sit as an entrepreneur. So I've never raised any money in the finance growth. I've bootstrapped it from the start. I just thought I left corporate because I don't want to be answerable to someone. As soon as you have another shareholder, you are answerable to someone. So, and that's different to having a co-founder in Bizwell or in Magic Markets. I mean, like a financial investor. I do not have one of those. I will never have one. Thankfully, I just don't need it. But, in a lot of cases, people do. And look, the reality is that the problem with South African VC is that our total addressable market in South Africa is really quite limited. So you have a situation where these VCs need to make 10 investments and 8 of them will fail. One of them will do okay. And one of them needs to do spectacularly well to make up for the 8 that failed. And the problem in South Africa is there are still 8 that fail, but the one that does incredibly well is not Facebook or, whatever. It's like a nice business in South Africa. And that's not big enough to make up for the 8 that failed. So that's the challenge for VC in South Africa. They either need to get the fail rate down, which makes them more cautious, which is what you typically see. They don't just throw money at an idea. Or they need to take a bigger stake in the ideas that do work. And that's also what you typically see, as you've alluded to. They don't want 2% of an idea. They want 20 or 30% of an idea. In the US, if you're 2% of Facebook, you're doing just fine. Thank you. And that's really the difference. So VC faces this very structural challenge in South Africa that I don't believe is resolvable, period. I don't think VC in its pure form actually works in South Africa. I think we have a hybrid version thereof. I think people do their best with what they can. But the reality is you just don't have access to finance that will back an idea on a whiteboard and give you millions and millions on end to go off and have a go. Funnily enough, in the US, that is also changing. The easy money is not available anymore. Interest rates are higher. Inflation is higher. VC has been smashed in the last year and a half. It's interesting. I wrote something for Financial Mail, probably, I don't know now, it must be like 9 months ago now, where I actually wrote about exactly this point before anyone was talking about it, which is how the macroeconomics is going to kill VC in the US. And it's happening. It has happened. And it's making it a lot harder to raise money. Very much so. When interest rates are low and money is cheap, then people can have a punt. Then you can take a big chance on someone's business being very valuable 5 years from now. But when that cash is burning every month, then suddenly you start to think, yeah, that's a great idea, but how do you make money with it this year?